What you are watching is not a YouTube video. It is not a man. It is not a man talking to you. It is a staged version of a YouTube video of a man talking to you, inside of a man talking to you, inside of a YouTube video. And in order to continue to watch things like this, you do not need to click subscribe, but you do need to click subscribe for, if you do not click subscribe, the man inside the video will stay the man inside the video. Welcome to Asteroid City. So Wes Anderson is weird. That's the best, feels like the most Wes Anderson entrance. There are things that are said in this one, I was just like, what? They would say things that I just audibly was just what? But I gotta give him kudos, because directors that don't challenge themselves, that just kind of become flat, don't become interesting. So, I've seen every single Wes Anderson film, by the way, so we can get into this in detail. This is Asteroid City is on Peacock right now, and it has audio description, and we'll get to that when we get to that. I have some thoughts. So a lot of people have had their say about Asteroid City, and where it stands in the Wes Anderson pantheon. I've heard it all. I've heard, oh my god, this is my most favoritist of all of the Wes Andersonist movies of all time. And I've also heard, I hate this film. And I've heard that from people who are like, I'm a Wes Anderson film and I hate this film. I've heard it from people who don't really like Wes Anderson. People don't really know what to do with this. It's definitely, it feels like it's an experimental version of Wes Anderson, which is a lot to say, because Wes really does a lot with his films anyway. They're quirky, they are his own thing. It's hard, his style is very his own, but it can be easily mimicked because it's been so well calculated over the years that you can actually kind of tell the little tropes that he uses in his films. The quirky characters with their quirky names doing their quirky things, and having really quirky dialogue and deadpan delivery, and always something weird happens, right? There's always something just unexplainably odd about the film. And Asteroid City is just that, and it's wrapped into that, and then it's thrown into a machine where it just got jumbled around and then it got vomited out as a film. And Wes Anderson was like, here you go, sir, this is the film that I've made for you. And you look at it and you go, I think that's a film. Is it a film? Wes Anderson says it is. So, right, let's do it. I can't even really fully explain this film to you because it's so weird. The film, first of all, I really want to know, because Bill Murray's been in every single Wes Anderson film, and he's not in this one, and it's supposedly because of COVID. And the way this film is shot, and all of the tiny little roles that pop up, I mean, this cast is ridiculous. I'm not even going to mention all of them because there are people that pop up for 5 seconds, and it doesn't, but that's what I'm thinking. I'm like, Bill Murray couldn't do a day shoot? He couldn't walk onto the screen and be like, blah, 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 and then go home? I think there are people who literally have a line of dialogue and they're like, done, did a Wes Anderson movie, moving on with my life. Yeah, it's very weird. I wonder what role, because he would have been, if it's COVID, it would have been something he caught at the last minute. So I wonder which role he was supposed to be. I'm going to guess Bryan Cranston's role or Tom Hanks's role. Those would be my two biggest guesses. Nothing else really makes sense. But those are my guess. That's what I got. That's what I got going on here. Um, Although some of the other roles would have been fun for him to do. Matt Dillon is in this. I never thought I would see Matt Dillon in a Wes Anderson film, but after seeing him in High Desert and now in this, I'm like, we have a really untapped Matt Dillon potential that I think we forgot about. And he is actually quite good, and I wish more people would cast him in things. I hope to continue, even though High Desert got canceled, I hope Matt Dillon can get a little bit of a career resurgence going on. I feel like he went away for a while. This is a really weird film. It's a film that's not a film. It's a film inside of a film but it's a play. It's what you're watching. You're told you're watching at the beginning of the film is you meet Bryan Cranston, who's like narrating to you, and he tells you what you're about to watch is a play. So Asteroid City, the whole thing is a play that's being written by, or was written by, Edward Norton's character. So you get this sort of like, you get this multi-level thing. You get Bryan Cranston talking to you sort of outside of a TV, right? Outside of the whole screening process. Like, he's breaking the fourth wall and talking to you, talking to me, the audience. And then you get inside the TV, you get Asteroid City, which is a play, which as the film progresses, it always says, it's in 3 acts, right? So you get like Act 1, and it'll say like scenes 1 through 3. Act 1, scenes 3 through 5, or I can't remember how it breaks it down, but it breaks it down by scenes, right? So it breaks it down like a play. But then you also get these weird moments with Edward Norton, who's doing his best Matthew McConaughey impression, because I kept hearing Matthew McConaughey in this film, and it was driving me absolutely insane. But it's Edward Norton's voice. It's the voice that he's manipulated, and it's a pretty close to McConaughey. That's the thing about being blind, is that when you're not given the expectation of what somebody looks like and what their voice is going to sound like, I can actually hear a completely different actor in the film. And I was like, is that Matthew McConaughey? I IMDb this. I was like, who is in this role? And it was like, Edward Norton? Why does Edward Norton sound like Matthew McConaughey? But it's pretty close. It sounded like Matthew McConaughey was trying to not sound like Matthew McConaughey. Now I realize it's Edward Norton who sounds like Matthew McConaughey. Very bizarre. It was like listening to Super Mario Brothers and being like, why is Chris Pratt doing a Mark Wahlberg impersonation? Yeah, it's this other thing where you're watching Edward Norton like writing the play, and he's interacting with these other characters that are playing these actors, but he's interacting them as actors before they do the play of these other people in his life. So it's like stories within inside of stories. It's like the story of how Asteroid City was written, but then Bryan Cranston comes back in and he reminds you that all of this is like staged. That he keeps reminding you you're watching a movie. I'm like, I know I'm watching a movie. Thank you, Wes Anderson, for continuously telling me throughout the film that I'm watching a movie, that this is an experience. I guess he thought people wouldn't understand the difference between the scenes that are sort of centered around Edward Norton's character and the rest of the movie that's centered around, I would say, Jason Schwartzman. But yeah, he's probably the lead of the Asteroid City part of the film. And that you wouldn't get that you wouldn't understand the difference if he doesn't have somebody constantly explaining it to you. It's a very interesting film. I'm very intrigued. I didn't necessarily love it, but I loved that it felt like Wes Anderson was like, I'm tired of doing the same old, but I don't want to necessarily completely, you know what I'm saying? Like, he didn't run out and make like a Predator movie. He wasn't just like, fuck it, I'm done. I'm gonna run out and just where's Arnold Schwarzenegger? And I'm gonna do a Schwarzenegger movie. I mean, he did something that is still very much in his wheelhouse, but at the same time, I feel like is probably his most challenging film. I think easily his most challenging film. I can't think of anything narratively that requires your audience's attention more than Asteroid City. Yeah, there are a lot of references. There are actors that sort of appear in both sequences, and you have to kind of pay attention to what their relationship is to Edward Norton, but then also who are they playing in Asteroid City. Not every character does that. Not every character bounces back and forth, but there's like two completely wildly different stories happening in this film. And then at Asteroid City, you have like one of those like disparate groups of many people that have come to this junior stargazer convention thing. Asteroid City is a town with a population of 84, but they have uh, basically they're famous because it's where an asteroid hit, and it's like a tourist trap basically. And they have this one sort of like roadside motel thing that gets filled up, I guess, every year, and they have like that and a diner. And Steve Carell runs the motel. Tilda Swinton seems to run something. I think she runs the observatory. Jeffrey Wright is in this. I can't really describe what his character did. He's in this. Um, Scarlett Johansson is in this. Not entirely sure why. Sometimes I couldn't figure out why somebody was in Asteroid City, and I couldn't quite put the pieces together as to why people were there. But they're there, and cool. Jason Schwartzman is very much the lead. Tom Hanks has a pretty decent sized role in this. It's actually pretty good. It's definitely not something I'd be like, give Tom Hanks an Oscar nomination. It's a pretty simple role for him. He kind of just showed up and they handed him some dialogue and he read it really well. He read it, he's like, I'm Tom Hanks, I got this. Just read his dialogue. Yeah. I mean, he didn't need a whole lot of transformation. If I had to say, like, performance-wise, who do I think is doing a great job here? It's actually Jason Schwartzman. Rarely do I ever feel like, oh, damn, we need to actually recognize somebody from a Wes Anderson film for a performance. But this is like the least Jason Schwartzman has ever been. It feels so outside of his wheelhouse. It feels so different for him. I couldn't hear him in the role. It didn't feel like he has some of these personality traits that usually push into his roles, and I didn't feel like that was what this was for him. It was so weird because he does such a good job in it, but it felt like the kind of role that was written for somebody else. But I'm sure it wasn't, because Wes has worked with Jason before. So I'm sure it was written for Jason Schwartzman. It goes more towards a testament of, I think he's playing a role that I wouldn't necessarily have considered him for, and I think he does a really good job in it. That being said, I can't spoil everything. Like, there's some stuff that happens in this film, and I can't spoil the jokes. I don't want to spoil some of the setups and the punchlines. It's not really a comedy. It's not going to have you rolling down the aisles. It does have some moments. It's also kind of serious. It has a lot of serious themes running throughout. One of the reasons Jason is out here with his kids is because his wife just died and he hasn't told them yet. So this is like a road trip to kind of ease them into the idea that their mother just died. So it's not really a happy film. And they're going out to this Junior Stargazer convention because his oldest son, Woodrow, there's a name. We need to revive that name. Bring that name back. I don't know why more people aren't named Woodrow anymore. And yeah, he's taking this. His kid is really important to the Junior Stargazing convention, and is a little whiz when it comes to looking up at the stars and figuring out what things are. So it's an interesting film that Wes Anderson put together, and I feel like he challenged himself. This was a challenge for himself, like a personal challenge, where he was like, these are things I feel like I haven't done yet and I want to do. And I want to tackle it, and I want to write it, and I want to do it. And I would love to see more of that. I still want to see Wes, though, challenge himself in a way where it truly does not feel like something he would direct. He almost directs a drama. He has a lot of dramatic moments in here. And I kind of wonder, what would a Wes Anderson drama look like? if he really tried to. He's so close to it because he's got so many people who deadpan their lines with no inflection whatsoever. It's like everybody reads this line like they're bored to be there, which is, you know, I guess it's kind of his shtick. It's kind of one of the things that he does. I'd love to see what Wes Anderson does outside of this little genre. And he could kind of bring his quirk into something like drama or horror. But I'd love to see him ditch the comedic aspect of it and do something new. I feel like before this, the biggest stretch that he had for himself was tackling animation with Fantastic Mr. Fox, which is his first animated feature and the one I actually like. I do not like Isle of Dogs. In case anybody's wondering what my least favorite Wes Anderson movie is, it's Isle of Dogs. Sorry, sports fans. Didn't work for me. But this is also kind of on the low end of Wes Anderson for me. It's definitely not something that I really want to see again. So it hovers around with like Darjeeling Limited as being something where I'm like, well, I saw that. I'm glad I saw it, but I don't really need to see it again. Whereas I have favorites, Rushmore being one of them. And honestly, that's one of the reasons why I really want to know the Bill Murray thing, because I feel like there's a full circle moment that could have happened here. If Tom Hanks was standing in for Bill Murray, I feel like if Bill Murray had been in that character, it would have been a nice sort of full circle moment for those actors. But we didn't get it because Bill Murray had COVID. So a lot of people think that there's some other reason why Bill Murray wasn't in the film, but they've been pretty explicit that Bill Murray had COVID. I'm still like, movies shoot over a long period of time. Was there nowhere for him to pop up in this film so he could keep up his streak of, I've been in every single Wes Anderson film since, you know, except Bottle Rocket, honestly. But, yeah. Anyway, it's fine. I don't know whether or not you like it. I have no idea what to tell you here. This film is going to repulse a lot of people. Some people will find it to be incredibly interesting, and it'll be in their top 10 for the year. This is a very odd film, and I can't tell you whether or not you'll like it. This is where critics are useless. Ignore them. Try to use your own barometer of, do I like Wes Anderson? And know that this is the most Wes Anderson-y thing that you'll probably ever watch in your entire life. This is him really trying to challenge himself structurally, narratively, and his actors are still delivering those deadpan lines. The child acting cast here is really pretty great. They all do good work, and it has a large ensemble full of people who pop up, including a lot of Wes Anderson regulars, a lot of people who have been in Wes Anderson films all over the years, including Willem Dafoe and Bob Balaban. They still pop up. So he likes to use who he likes to use. But then he also brings in new faces. I'm fairly certain in saying that this is Steve Carell's first Wes Anderson movie. I don't need to look that one up. So he changes it up by bringing some of those people in. It's interesting. I was interested. I'm intrigued. I don't know that I really loved it. I don't know that I really enjoyed it as much, but I appreciate it. And sometimes you can just appreciate film for what it is. I sort of appreciated what Chris Nolan was trying to do with Tenet, even though it didn't really work for me. Like, I appreciated what he went for. And that's the same thing here with Anderson and with Asteroid City, is I appreciate that Anderson was trying to push himself further as a director. I'm just not entirely sure everything worked for me. So the audio description is not my favorite. It puts me at a disadvantage. And this is a Peacock problem too, because Peacock, unless you're watching a kids feature, will kick you out as soon as credits start. It kicked me out while it was reading the names of who was in the cast. Like, at the very end of the film, it does this reading of cast names, and I was actually kind of excited. I was like, oh, well, let's see the hear them all read at the same time. I couldn't even get through that. So no, I didn't get to the narrator name. What I'll say is there's a growing trend of narrators whose voices are so lifeless that I actually start questioning whether or not they are AI. And I can tell when someone is a human narrator, and then there's the ones that are like the really bad robo description TTS voices where it's like, okay, that's definitely not human, you know. But then there's this other sort of slightly elevated that they're using, you know, in our like Amazon devices and Apple devices, where the voice sounds a little bit more realistic, but it still doesn't necessarily understand how to have inflection and tone, and doesn't really rise and fall, and there's still weird ways to pronounce a word. And that had that a couple times for me here. There was a way where it got kind of stuck on a word, and it didn't quite say the word in which I thought an actual human would say that word. It's possible that this is just the way that guy says that word. I don't know. But I question whether or not this was a human narrated film. Is very, very flat. But at the same time, I'm going to come back to you on that one and say, this is a very flatly delivered film. I mean, that's the... If you're going for audio description that matches a film, if we're trying to talk about, let's get somebody who sounds like they're narrating a horror movie. Let's get somebody who sounds like they're narrating a kid's movie. Let's get somebody who sounds like they're narrating, you know, a romantic comedy. This voice and its neutrality and its like lack of inflection is perfect for this film. So I can't actually be too mad about it, because this film does not have, these characters do not speak with rises and falls in their voice. Nothing seems to surprise them. You know, they're in this world where it's like, if their car exploded, they'd be like, well, look at that. My car exploded. Guess we won't be driving home anytime soon. You know, it's like, it's so... So why wouldn't the narration be that? You know, how can I hit the narration for being that? For this film, it feels exactly like what it's supposed to be. Like, feels like Wes Anderson wrote the audio description and then had somebody record it and was like, do not raise the tone of your voice ever in this film. So you just talk like this the whole film, all the way through. Doesn't matter what's happening on screen. I don't care if it starts getting crazy at all. You're just going to keep talking at the same level for the whole film, all the way through, until the end of the film. Do not have any inflection in your voice. And then that's exactly what we get. We get that kind of flat narration. And it works for this film. And my only caution would be, if this is an AI narrator, I don't need it on other films. You can use this for Wes Anderson movies, and that's about it. Like, if this is a human, they need to find something going on the next time I hear them. They need Red Bull or something before they narrate their next film, because if I start questioning whether or not you are a human being, not a good sign for how you narrate a film. That's all I'm saying. The writing is great, but I know that you can write something and still have AI audio just like on top of it. But the writing is it's actually a really well written script and really tries to give you that the image that Anderson is going for. Anderson is such a visual director. I don't know how to say this. This is one of those times when I usually say, how do we explain to the blind audience what something really does look like? A style, you know, cinematography, a shot, color grading, stuff like that. A lot of stuff that we skipped over in narration. And Wes Anderson is somebody who has a consistent visual style. Because I've seen it, I can kind of imagine, while things are being described to me, this sort of like slice of Americana that he's decided to put out in the middle of nowhere. I can kind of see what he's doing, and I can kind of imagine how these characters are dressed. They're probably dressed in a way that nobody would really ever be dressed in the real world. You know, I mean, Anderson has a very specific style, and he shoots in this style, and it all seems kind of almost like a painting. It's really hard to convey that in audio description. The why do people like Wes Anderson? It's not because of his scripts. It's that's not the whole reason. It's not just this thing. It's not his ability to direct and edit a film. He actually has a very visual style in all of his films. There's a very specific look to all of his films, and the characters and the quirkiness and in how they look, how they dress, how their hair and makeup is done. Everything is very specific. He is a very intentional director in a very specific way. So the audio description just never this is now the second Wes Anderson film I think I've reviewed while being blind, the last one being French Dispatch, and the audio description for both of those just doesn't capture that. It doesn't bring that to me, and it's fine. But then if you want to be a blind movie buff and you're trying to have these conversations with people about directors, and somebody brings up Wes Anderson and why they really like Wes Anderson, I promise you it's not going to be any of the reasons you would pick up as a blind film lover from his from the audio description. It doesn't translate. This is just one of those things. It just doesn't translate. So it's disappointing. I don't know how to get it to translate. I don't know how to explain to people why Wes Anderson. Why does Wes Anderson have the following, the loyal following that he has? Why is it that when people say a Wes Anderson film that people go, oh my God, I have to see that? They don't really care what the film is. They just go see it because it's Wes Anderson. And there's a reason for that. And it really has very little to do with the stuff that we have access to. So I think there was a good attempt at describing as many things that were on camera that, were set pieces, but it still doesn't really describe the style. So that's what we get for stylized directors. Anyway, it's not really my favorite Wes Anderson film. It's not really my favorite film of the year. I appreciate what he did, though. And so the closest thing I could think of was Tenet, when I was trying to think of, where do I grade this? And it was the same thing I felt about Tenet. I was like, there's stuff here that I like and that I appreciate. It just doesn't completely come together for me. But also, I really love Jason Schwartzman in this. I think it might be his strongest performance to date. If not, it's definitely top 3 for him of anything that he's done. So, playing a grieving father is it's weird to think that the kid from Rushmore that's been so many years now that we're in this place. Blows my mind, but really nice performance from him. I'm going to give Asteroid City a B-. I like Wes Anderson films, and like I said, Isle of Dogs is still my least favorite Wes Anderson film, so this did not beat that at all, but it's way down there. So there you go. That's how I feel about Wes Anderson's Asteroid City. So give it a look if you feel like it. It won't be for everybody. Not everybody's gonna like this. So, thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. And I have a website, macthemovieguy.com. You can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, or Threads at Mac the Movie Guy. You can go to the audio description project, adp.acb.org. It'll let you know what movies have narration and where you can watch them. And you can go to the ADNA.org. That's the ADNA.org. And you can see who's narrating your favorite films and television series. Anyway, that's it. I will review something else for you guys, and see you on the other side.